Okay, so let's dive into this OpenAI Swarm framework that you've been looking at.
Yeah.
You shared some pretty interesting documentation from their GitHub repo.
Mm-hmm.
It's called OpenAI Swarm LLM Context. And it
Mm-hmm.
seems like
Right.
they're really pushing the boundaries with large language models.
Yeah, definitely. And this is going to be right up your alley,
Oh, yeah, for
as
sure.
an experienced AI engineer and researcher.
Yeah,
This is exciting stuff.
absolutely.
Swarm is all about orchestrating these LLMs,
Right.
not just treating them as like single point solutions.
Yeah.
It's a whole different way of thinking about how we build these AI systems.
Yeah. From what I'm seeing,
Hmm.
it seems to provide a pretty structured way to create
Yeah.
these multi-agent systems. It's almost like
Yeah.
building a team
Yeah.
of specialized AI workers.
That's a great analogy, and the documentation goes right into that concept. They say an agent simply encapsulates a set of instructions with a set of functions, plus some additional settings below, and has the capability to hand off execution to another agent.
Okay.
So right from the start, you're seeing this idea of agents working together and passing tasks back and forth.
Right. So we have these agents, each with their own set of instructions
Yeah.
and functions that they can execute.
Right.
But how does it all come together? How do they actually do anything?
Well, the heart of Swarm is this thing called the ClientRun Loop.
Okay.
It's basically the engine that drives the whole system.
Gotcha.
The documentation puts it like this. Swarm's client.run implements the following loop. 1. Get a completion from the current agent 2. Execute tool calls and append results. 3. Switch agent if necessary 4. Update context variables if necessary 5. If no new function calls, return.
Okay, so this loop is constantly cycling through these steps, getting
Right.
responses from agents, executing functions,
Yeah.
and potentially switching to different agents based on the results. It sounds a lot like traditional program flow, but with AI agents in the mix.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what's so interesting about Swarm.
Yeah.
It blurs the lines between AI and traditional programming.
Uh-huh.
You're not just writing code, you're designing a system of intelligent agents that can interact with your code and access data and make decisions.
So this client.run loop is clearly essential.
Yeah.
Can you break it down for me a little further?
Sure, let's look at each step of the loop in a little more detail.
Okay.
The first step is get a completion from the current agent,
Right.
and this is where the LLM comes into play.
Yep.
The agent, using its instructions and any available context, will generate a response,
Okay.
which could be text a decision or even a call to a Python function.
So this is where the intelligence of the agent really shines through.
Exactly.
Okay.
Then in step 2, execute tool calls and append results. Swarm takes any function calls that the agent has made and actually executes them in your Python environment. This is how the agents can interact with the outside world or manipulate data.
So it's like giving them hands to work with.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
They can reach out and do things in the real world through these functions.
Exactly. And the results of those functions are then fed back into the system,
Okay.
and they become part of the context for future decisions.
Okay. So step 3 is switch agent if necessary.
Right.
And this is where things get really interesting.
Yeah, this is where it gets cool.
Based on the results of the function calls or the agent's response, the loop might decide to hand off control to a different agent.
Exactly.
So it's like having a team of specialists, each with their own area of expertise.
Right.
If one agent hits a roadblock,
Yeah,
they can pass the task to someone better suited for the job.
exactly.
Okay, this is making a lot of sense now. But what about those context variables
Yeah.
that are mentioned in the loop description?
Those are crucial for keeping everything running smoothly. The context variables act as a shared memory between the agents and the functions,
Okay,
allowing them to pass information back and forth.
gotcha.
The documentation highlights this.
Okay.
They say, the instructions can either be a regular struct or a function that returns a struct. The function can optionally receive a context variables parameter, which will be populated by the context variables passed into client.run.
Okay.
So it basically ensures that everyone is working with the most up-to-date information.
Okay, so it's like a dynamic whiteboard that all the agents and functions can access and update.
Yeah.
This helps them to coordinate their actions and make informed decisions.
Exactly.
So we've got the loop, we've got the agents, and this shared context.
Yeah.
What about the instructions and functions themselves?
Right.
How are those defined?
Well, instructions are pretty straightforward.
Okay.
They basically guide the agent's behavior, just like a system prompt you might give to a language model.
Gotcha.
They provide the overall goal and context for the agent's actions.
Okay, and the function.
The functions are where things get really interesting.
Okay.
The documentation says Swarm agents can call Python functions directly. Functions should usually return a str. Values will be attempted to be cast as a str. If a function returns an agent, execution will be transferred to that agent. If a function defines a context variable's parameter, it will be populated by the context variables passed into ClientRun.
Okay.
This means that you can define custom Python functions that your agents can call directly.
Right.
These functions can do anything that you can do in Python.
Right.
Access databases, make API calls, interact with external systems, you name it.
This is where the real power of Swarm comes in. Right.
Exactly.
It's not just about the AI making decisions in isolation.
Right.
It's about connecting those decisions to real-world actions through code.
Yeah, and by combining those actions with the intelligence of the LLMs, and you can start to build some pretty amazing things.
Yeah, it's like giving your AI agents the tools to manipulate the world around them.
Exactly.
So we've covered the core building blocks of Swarm, the loop, the agent's instructions, functions, this idea of a shared context.
Yeah.
It's all starting to click into place.
Good.
But I think it would be helpful to see a concrete example
Yeah, very great.
of how all of these pieces come together in practice.
Yeah. Luckily, the documentation provides a great real-world example.
Okay.
A customer service chatbot that's built for an airline using Swarm.
Perfect. Let's see how Swarm can be used to build something tangible, and I'm guessing pretty complex.
You're not wrong. It's a fascinating example
Okay.
that really highlights the potential of this framework.
Sounds like a great place to pick up in part 2.
Yeah.
We'll unpack that airline chatbot and see Swarm in action.
Looking forward to it.
Okay, so we've laid the groundwork for understanding how Swarm functions,
Huh.
but let's actually see it in action with this airline chatbot example.
Yeah.
What stands out to you in the way that they designed this system?
The way they structured the agents is really clever.
Okay.
It's not just one monolithic AI trying to do everything.
Right.
It's like a team of specialized agents, each handling specific tasks.
So how do they divide up the responsibilities?
It all starts with the triage agent.
Okay.
This agent is like the first point of contact,
Right.
trying to figure out what the customer needs.
Like a receptionist?
Exactly, like a receptionist directing you to the right department.
Right, but in this case, it's all happening within the AI system.
Exactly. And depending on the customer's request, the triage agent will then hand off the conversation to a more specialized agent.
Gotcha.
So, for example, if the customer is looking to change or cancel a flight,
Right.
the triage agent would pass it to the flight modification agent.
Okay, so we're already seeing this idea of agents working together, passing tasks back and forth based on their expertise.
Exactly.
What happens next?
So the flight modification agent takes it from there.
Okay.
But even within that agent, there's further specialization.
Oh, wow.
If it's a cancellation request,
Right.
it gets routed to the flight cancel agent.
Mhm.
And for changes, you have the flight change agent.
So it's a whole hierarchy
Exactly. It's a hierarchy of agents,
of agents.
each handling a specific piece of the customer service puzzle.
Yeah, what about lost baggage?
Oh, of course.
That's always a stressful situation for travelers.
They've got that covered too.
Okay.
The lost baggage agent steps in to handle those inquiries,
Okay.
using specific functions designed to track down those missing bags.
So it's like a well-coordinated team.
Yeah.
Each agent knowing its role
Yeah.
and working in sync with the others.
Exactly.
It's impressive how they managed to capture so much complexity within this framework.
Yeah.
But how does all of this translate into actual actions?
Right.
Remember you mentioned that agents can execute Python functions.
Yeah.
Can you give me some examples from this airline chatbot?
Absolutely. The code is full of interesting functions that bring this chatbot to life.
Okay.
One that caught my eye is the escalate tow agent function.
Okay.
It's essentially a safety net for situations that the AI can't handle on its own. If things get too complicated or require a human touch,
Right.
the chatbot knows when to pass the baton to a real person.
That's reassuring to know.
Yeah.
It means that there's always a human backup for those tricky edge cases.
Right.
It's a good reminder that even with powerful AI, human oversight is still crucial.
Yeah, for sure.
What other functions did they implement?
Well, for lost baggage, there's initiate baggage search,
Right.
which I'm sure is a huge relief for anyone who's ever had that sinking feeling of realizing their luggage is missing.
Oh, yeah.
And there's also valid to change flight,
Okay.
which I imagine involves a lot of complex logic around, checking ticket types and fare rules and available flights.
It's amazing how they've managed to encode all those intricate airline policies and procedures
Right.
into these functions.
Exactly.
It's like having a mini airline expert embedded within the AI system.
Yeah.
This example really showcases how Swarm can be applied to solve real-world problems,
Uh-huh.
even ones as complex as managing airline customer service.
Yeah, and this is just one application.
Right.
The documentation also mentions routines and handoffs,
Yeah.
which seem to take things to another level.
What can you tell me about those?
You're right, the airline chatbot is just the tip of the iceberg.
Okay.
Routines and handoffs introduce a whole new layer of sophistication to Swarm.
Okay.
They provide a way to orchestrate multiple agents in a more structured and controlled manner,
Gotcha.
especially when dealing with complex workflows.
Okay.
Think of it this way. Routines are essentially predefined sequences of steps for agents to follow.
Right.
Let's stick with the airline example.
Sure.
Imagine a routine specifically for handling flight cancellations.
Yeah.
It might involve steps like verifying the booking details, checking the cancellation policy,
Right.
calculating potential refunds, and finally updating the system to reflect the cancellation.
So this structured approach ensures consistency
Exactly.
and minimizes the chances of errors.
Yeah, especially in those multi-step processes.
Yeah. Instead of relying solely on the agent's instructions to figure everything out, we're providing a clear roadmap for them to follow.
Exactly. It's like giving them a step-by-step guide for handling specific situations.
But what about handoffs?
Yeah.
Where do those fit into the picture?
Handoffs are the mechanism for transferring control between agents within these routines.
Okay.
They ensure a smooth transition of responsibility based on the context of the conversation
Gotcha.
or the results of certain actions.
Okay.
The cookbook entry on orchestrating agents, routines, and handoffs actually describes them perfectly.
Yeah.
When working with language models, quite often all you need for solid performance is a good prompt and the right tools. However, when dealing with many unique flows, things may get hairy. This cookbook will walk through one way to tackle this. We'll introduce the notion of routines and handoffs, then walk through the implementation and show how they can be used to orchestrate multiple agents in a simple, powerful, and controllable way.
Okay, so routines lay out the steps, and handoffs determine when to pass the baton from one agent to another.
Exactly.
I think I'm starting to grasp the concept.
Good.
But can you walk me through a specific scenario where a handoff might occur within the airline chatbot?
Sure, let's go back to our customer who wants to change their flight.
Okay.
The triage agent identifies the request
Uh-huh.
and hands it off to the flight modification agent.
Right.
Now, this agent might have a routine specifically for change requests.
Okay.
As part of that routine, it might use a function to check if the customer is eligible for a change
Okay.
based on their ticket type and how close it is to the departure time.
So it's gathering information and making a decision based on predefined rules.
Precisely. Now, let's say the function determines that the customer is eligible for a change.
Okay.
The routine might then specify a handoff to the flight change agent to proceed with the modification.
That's a logical flow.
Yeah.
But what if the customer isn't eligible for a change?
Right.
What happens then?
That's where conditional handoffs come in. The routine could have a different path defined for that scenario.
Right.
Perhaps it hands the conversation back to the triage agent to explain the situation to the customer.
Yeah.
Or routes it to an agent specializing in alternative solutions,
Okay.
like finding a different flight or offering travel vouchers.
So it's about anticipating different possibilities.
Yeah,
And creating these branching paths within the routine.
exactly.
It's almost like creating a decision tree for the AI agents to navigate.
That's a great way to think about it.
It's all starting to make a lot of sense,
Good.
but it's also a lot to absorb.
It is a lot, but you're doing great.
Thank you.
The key takeaway here is that routines and handoffs provide a way to introduce structure and control into these complex AI systems.
Right.
They allow us to move beyond those simple question and answer interactions
Right.
and build agents that can truly orchestrate these complex processes.
I'm definitely starting to see the power of this approach.
Yeah.
It's like taking the individual intelligence of the agents
Uh-huh.
and amplifying it by embedding them within these well-defined workflows.
Exactly.
But I'm also curious about the broader implications of all this.
Yeah.
Where do you see Swarm fitting into the larger landscape of AI development?
That's a great question, and it's something that we can delve into in part 3.
Okay.
I think Swarm represents a significant step towards bridging the gap between AI and traditional software development.
Sounds like a perfect way to wrap up our deep dive into Swarm.
I agree. Looking forward to discussing this further in part 3.
Welcome back. We've been unpacking this OpenAI Swarm framework,
Yeah.
and I have to say, the more we explore it, the more fascinating it becomes.
It really is.
It's like peeking behind the curtain of some next-level AI development.
Yeah, pushing the boundaries of what we can do with AI, especially when it comes to building systems that can handle those complex, real-world tasks.
And in the last part, you mentioned that Swarm could bridge the gap between AI and traditional software development.
Right.
Can you expand on that a bit?
Yeah.
What does that bridge actually look like?
Well, for a long time, AI development felt kind of isolated from the rest of the software world.
Yeah.
You know, you had these incredibly powerful LLMs that were capable of, amazing things.
Right.
But integrating them into existing systems or workflows was often a challenge.
Yeah, it felt like two separate universes trying to communicate.
Exactly. It's like having this incredible engine,
Right.
but no way to connect it to the wheels to actually make the car move.
I see what you mean.
And that's where Swarm comes in.
Okay.
It provides a framework, a set of tools and concepts
Oh, yeah.
that allows us to seamlessly connect these two worlds.
Okay.
On the one hand, you have the power of LLMs for things like natural language understanding, decision-making, even creative content generation.
And on the other hand, you have all the tools and infrastructure of traditional software development.
Exactly.
Python code databases, APIs,
Right.
all those things that we rely on to build those robust and scalable applications.
Precisely. And Swarm acts as this bridge,
Okay.
allowing us to leverage the strengths of both worlds. You can now have AI agents that can interact with your code access data trigger actions,
Right.
and all within this structured and manageable framework.
It's like finally having that missing link.
Exactly.
So what kind of possibilities does this open up?
Oh man, the potential is immense.
Yeah.
Think about complex business processes that are currently very manual and time-consuming.
Okay.
Things like processing invoices,
Right.
scheduling appointments,
Right.
or even onboarding new employees.
Yeah.
With Swarm, you could build intelligent agents that automate a significant portion of those workflows.
So not just automating repetitive tasks, but actually having AI agents that can understand context and make decisions and interact with various systems to get things done.
Exactly.
It's like having a team of tireless, super efficient digital assistants.
That's a great way to put it.
And think about research.
Oh, yeah.
Imagine having an AI research assistant that doesn't just retrieve information,
Yeah.
but can actually analyze data, identify patterns,
Right.
and even propose new hypotheses.
It's like taking those research tools that we have now and injecting them with a dose of genuine intelligence.
Yeah, it could accelerate scientific discovery in so many fields.
Absolutely.
And let's not forget about entertainment.
Of course.
Game developers could use Swarm to create truly immersive experiences
Yeah.
with characters that learn, adapt, and react to players in incredibly sophisticated ways.
It's like taking those non-player characters that we're used to
Right.
and turning them into something much more dynamic and engaging.
The possibilities are pretty much endless.
They are, and what's even more exciting is that we're just scratching the surface.
Yeah.
As more developers start using Swarm and experimenting with these concepts, who knows what incredible applications we'll see emerge.
It's like opening up a whole new frontier of AI development.
It is.
It's thrilling and a bit daunting at the same time.
It is, and as with any powerful technology, it's crucial to consider the ethical implications.
Oh yeah, for sure.
We need to ensure that these systems are built responsibly, that they're fair, unbiased, and ultimately used for good.
That's a critical point. As
Yeah.
we empower these AI agents,
Yeah.
we need to make sure we're doing so in a way that benefits humanity as a whole.
Absolutely.
It's a responsibility that we can't take lightly.
I agree, but with careful consideration and a focus on ethical development, I believe Swarm has the potential to revolutionize the way we interact with technology and solve complex problems.
Yeah.
It's a tool that could truly empower us to build a better future.
This has been an incredible journey into the world of Swarm.
It has.
I feel like we've gone from, a basic understanding of the mechanics
Right?
to really grasping the truly transformative potential of this technology.
And that's the beauty of a deep dive.
Yeah.
You start with a specific topic, you delve into the details, and you emerge with a whole new perspective on the bigger picture.
So to our listeners out there, if you're working in AI or even just curious about the future of this technology, I highly encourage you to dive into Swarm.
Yeah.
Explore the documentation, experiment with the code, and who knows, maybe you'll be the one to unlock the next groundbreaking application.
And remember, the best discoveries often happen when we push beyond the familiar, when we venture into uncharted territory.
Yeah.
Keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.